Fusberg Center of Conservative Judaism in Jerusalem, commonly known as Beit Nativ or Agron, is the home of the conservative movement in Israel. The conservative movement is relatively small in Israel because of the sister movement across the world called Masorti movement. Instead of USY, the members of Masorti are members of the Noam youth movement. The Fusberg Center is located across the street from Gan HaAzmaut, or Independence Park, Prime Minister Netanyahu's house, in the American Consulate General, and is at 8 Agron Street. It is about half a mile walk to the Shuk and Ben Yehuda Street, and about a mile from the Old City. There are several parts of the Fusberg Center: the new building, which is the front building you see when you enter, and has elevators and 2 dining halls. Then there is the old building, which has stairs to the dormitory. In the basement of the new building, there is a small theater, computer lab, and piano. In between the 2 buildings is the conservative synagogue, where one won't find a mechitza or barrier that separates the men from the women. There is also a tunnel that connects the 2 buildings and the small parking garage underneath the complex. There are elevators in the new building which go to all 7 floors, 4 above and 3 below. The Conservative Center is the base for all those who go on USY Israel Pilgrimage and Nativ College Leadership Program. The Conservative Yeshiva is also located on the campus of the Fusberg Center. A yeshiva is a building in which people study traditional texts from Torah, Talmud, Tanakh, and among others. People from all over the world come to study in a traditional style in its Jerusalem stone walls. It is the only conservative yeshiva in the world. It is where one of the 3 tracks of Nativ will study. Ben Yehuda is what is commonly known as a tourist trap. This is where people come from all over the world to do their Judaica shopping. Because people are willing to spend a lot of money on vacation, the store owners hitch up their prices to take advantage of their eager tourists. There are several ruses, like a shop owner will ask you what youth group you are part of, and you say USY, and he will say, "Have off on everything USY." The problem is, he doubled the price on everything to begin with. To avoid problems like this, one must haggle with the store owners. There is also the famous burger chain, Burger's Bar, where you may order a hamburger or lamb burger with sausage such as garlic paste, pesto, tahina, hummus, and others. There are also buffalo wings and french fries. Buffalo Bar is a kosher Burger's Bar is a kosher establishment and is highly recommended. There's always a lot of arguing about custom-made kippot. To get a completely custom-made kippah, one must go to On's. To embroider on already existing kippah, or to buy one and then embroider it, one must go across the street to Kippah Man's. Moshiko's is located on Ben Yehuda Street. Moshiko's is a shawarma, falafel, and schnitzel stand that is slightly overrated, but is a necessary stop at least once in your trip. Falafel is always a nice vegetarian option on the menu. The city of David is the former home of David Melech, King David, and the palace of all the kings of the First Temple period. During the Second Temple period, it was switched to something called the Herodian Mansions, also in the Old City. This is the world's largest continuous archaeological dig. There are areas of the city of David which have yet to be explored, and it is a great place to look out upon the city of Jerusalem, especially the Old City and the Mount of Olives. The dig underneath revealed water tunnels that were dug underneath the city to provide water to the desert city in case of siege. Today, these tunnels are used primarily as a tourist form of entertainment. The Old City of Jerusalem is surrounded by walls built by the Byzantines in the 16th century by the Ottoman Turks under the rule of Suleiman the Magnificent. The steps in the ramparts are very slippery, so it is advisable to put your cameras away during the wall hikes. You will also see along your hikes several holes that have been cut out. These narrow holes are not windows, but rather arrow slits to which archers would angle shots out. Inside the city, one will find the city divided into 4 quarters: the Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, the Jewish quarter, and the Armenian quarter. There are a variety of things to do in the Old City, whether it is daven at the Kotel or visit the Davidson Center. The old city was recaptured by Israel from Jordan in the 1967 war, when Egypt, Jordan, and Syria massed troops on Israel's borders. Israel, in order to minimize damage, preemptively struck Egypt, folded into Jordan, and up to the north, where the Golan Heights are. When Israel came out victorious, it emerged with the Sinai Peninsula, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights. The Har Habayit, or Temple Mount, is among the holiest of places in the world to both the Jewish and Islamic faiths. The history of the Har Habayit is very bloody. The reason that this spot is so divine is because of the Akedah, or the binding of Isaac, which is believed to have occurred at this holy spot. The place was once a pagan temple, until the Israelite nation conquered, and on that spot King Solomon built the first temple. The Assyrians later laid siege to Jerusalem and quickly retreated. Later the Babylonians then laid siege to the city, sacked it, destroying the city and erecting a temple to their own gods. Later, Jerusalem was conquered by the Egyptians, and later by the Greeks by Alexander the Great. Each time a new group of pagans took the Har Habayit, the conquerors put their gods in the temple. Later the area around was conquered again and came into the power of Cyprus the Great, who many Jews believed to be the Messiah, and he allowed them to rebuild the temple. Later the Romans conquered and allowed the Jews to practice their faith. The Maccabee dynasty of kings was coming to an end, so the king practically signed the death warrant for the Second Temple period. By allowing the Roman Empire to govern the ancient state of Israel, later King Herod, who felt in sympathy with the Jews, converted and paid a massive renovation of the Second Temple. This temple was greatly expanded, and in 66 AD, the Jews under the Roman occupation led a revolt, which was quickly put down, and in retribution, the Second Temple was destroyed shortly after the uprising was crushed in the year 70 AD. The Temple of Jupiter was then erected by the Roman conquerors. When the Roman Empire fell to the Mamluks, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa mosques were built on it, and is still there to this day. The western wall, or Wailing Wall, or Kotel, is the west side of the outer wall of the temple complex. The northern part is the traditional davening hotspot of the wall, but if you go south, one will find Robinson's Arch and the southern wall, where scorch marks from the burning can still be seen today, and it is the spot of the conservative reform/Masorti davening section of the Kotel, and is far more impressive from an architectural standpoint. The Western Wall Memorial Society has been fighting gender battles for a long time. The women of the wall have been attempting to daven at a rapidly decreasing wall space before the Israel police have to arrest them for public disturbance. However, the egalitarian section of the wall at Robinson's Arch and the southern section of the wall were later added and protected by law. The Temple Institute is a radical organization that is attempting to push laws through Israel to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. The current climate of the murky political affairs of Israel in the Middle East will not allow for a third temple to be rebuilt at the same spot. But we must have hopes for a third temple in the future. One small issues as to whether the new high priest, or Kohen Gadol, is Ashkenaz or Sephardic. As Theodor Herzl said, if you will it is no dream, so therefore a third temple will eventually be built. The Shuk, or open-air market, is one of the most fun places to go in Israel. Limited funds is always a good excuse for haggling here. For 10 shekel, one can buy yummy sunflower seeds that are an inch and a half long, or peanuts that have a braided shell around them. The candy is all delicious and is very highly recommended, as is the marzipan bakery with delicious rugelach. If you are to buy anything not food-related, make sure that you check that you get exactly what you ordered. I was there. I ordered a talit katan as a small, but the guy gave me a large, and by the time I realized my mistake, it was too late for me to return it. There is a money exchange place, so I would suggest bringing $20 US there and getting an exchange for roughly 80 sheklim. Grab some of the relatively inexpensive spices of the shuk for your mother. She will appreciate it. I would also recommend getting some pomegranates at the end of your trip, when they're in season, and then also don't forget to grab a 10 shekel bag of sunflower seeds to spread over the balcony of Beit Nativ during Shabbos when you chill with your friends.